what happened to Anduin? The War Within cinematic. Now, everyone's crying. Everyone's saying Anduin's a bitch. Anduin's crying. Now, Anduin has been a bitch in the past, but he's been through a lot. Let's see exactly what he's been through.
So you may remember Anduin as the golden boy, the knight in shining armor just a few years back, and now he's looking like a 15-year-old wretched blood elf, dehydrated, looking like he was just seed from the desert. What actually happened to this guy? Some would say the Shadowlands happened, which technically is true, but if you missed the storyline and some other hints from Dragonflight as well, let's bridge that gap. He has been missing for over 5 years, and he has apparently also lost his light, which is going to be a massive part of at least the next 2 expansions. So what is even going on with Anduin? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get anything Warcraft related, gift cards and software, and all below market
Use
prices.
code Doran.
Best of all, if you add my code Doran, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. So, Anduin has always been like the golden boy, an idealist, the perfect king that was always open to peace, which was much different when compared to his father, but now he might finally be
the Giga Chad of WoW, man. Anduin Wrynn is the Giga Chad of WoW. The band's man. God, what a badass.
His father, but now he might finally be understanding why his father Varian was quicker to aggression and how the world isn't exactly a place where you can always talk things out, although I would say they also changed a few years back. Due to his boyish looks, his above normal open mind to peace, talking things out, mercy, forgiveness, emotional displays, he has kind of developed this reputation within the Warcraft community of being like this weak crybaby. Even people said that about him crying in the newest cinematic, but let me just kind of give you
look, I will say one thing about him crying in the cinematic. Let's remember. This guy's been through a lot, man. Don't forget, when he was a baby, his mom was killed, right? By a rock to the head from an angry mob. His dad was gone for many years, fighting as a gladiator when his memory was lost and then suddenly returned, and he was a boy king. During his time as a boy king, literally a fucking corrupted dragon was his left-hand person. And Nixie, I mean, come on. This guy's lived a fucked up life. Then his dad dies in a war in Legion, and he's forced to the throne, only to be corrupted by the fucking worst villain in the entire game, the Jailer. I mean, we hated our time with the Jailer. Imagine Anduin. He had to literally live with him for the entire expansion. I really think that the crying in this cinematic specifically, the Anduin crying is more like a PTSD war-torn person. Right? These are more man tears. I don't know why everyone bitching about how Anduin cried in this cinematic. I felt like it was more of like a man's cry, you know? Like just a guy who's seen a lot of fucked up shit, and he got over it. He got over it in the cinematic, and let's see, maybe his character development is really good in this next expansion. He continues to get over it. We'll find out.
Different perspective on this, as there is really so much more to his
character
than meets the eye. As Anduin was a prince as well as very young, people associated that Anduin was born with a silver spoon like a spoiled prince, and it was his lack of travel and immersion into the real world that led to his insanely idealistic view of the world and how everything can be solved with talking.
Never had a mom.
That actually isn't true whatsoever if you actually dig into it. This guy has had a troubled life since he was born, and he has actually kind of developed this mindset. Despite all that, most people would be a lot more bitter. Keep in mind, Anduin's grandfather, the King of Stormwind, had been assassinated. Then when he was very young, he lost his mother Tiffin, who was killed in the Defiance Brotherhood rebellion with Raw, and since then it has only gone downhill. His father was abducted and he was left in charge of Stormwind and the Alliance together with Bolvar when he was literally only a few years old. Then his father returned, but not exactly to a peaceful world, and he barely spent any time with him. We had the Lich King, we had the Cataclysm destroying half of the world, and a big portion of Stormwind as well, like a giant dragon literally burned half the city right outside of his window. Then he went to Pandaria, he was shipwrecked, he was captured by the Horde, he was almost killed by Garrosh personally. Then literally just a few years later, his father gets turned into ash by Gul'dan in a massive Legion invasion of the entirety of Azeroth.
Still one of the coolest cinematics in the game.
As a really young man, he is given the incredible burden of leading the entire Alliance, where not many really respect him due to his age, especially his enemies that see him as weak, and especially with his enemies being Sylvanas, who was controlled by this jailer and was bent on actually making war. Of course, right off the bat, he is led into a massive war where Sylvanas forces his hand, but he now has to invade Undercity, he has to lead a massive horde in the Alliance war in BFA, but that is literally just the start of his actual troubles. Even until that point, it was the light that had saved him, and he maintained his peaceful mindset despite all the crazy things happening. However, then Shadowlands came and he's literally abducted to go into Azeroth's version of...
Hey, by the way, what the hell, Gen? He didn't even go wolf form here. I mean, how did you just let this shit happen? Gen Greymane needs to be blamed for this abduction right here. He was right there. He didn't even switch. But like I said, I mean, Doran's talking about some of the same shit I am. This guy had a fucked up childhood, man. Really fucked up. I will be honest, the one time that Anduin really annoyed me was back in Mists of Pandaria when his dad was trying to, you know, deal with the Horde and all this shit, and his son was running around with freaking Rathian. Anduin and Rathian were running around being fuckboys in the middle of Pandaria while his dad was fighting a little war. That's the time where Anduin annoyed the shit out of me. But, you know, I think he's slowly grown into a better character. And like I said, the tears of the last of this last cinematic, those are PTSD tears, man. Those are the tears of someone who's been through a lot of fucking wars in his young life. And he hasn't been able to deal with it. Hasn't been able to think about it. Hasn't been able to just sit and hash it out. That's what I think it was.
Hell, where he becomes the pawn of the main guy, like literally Satan himself. Now, honestly, I feel a bit strange talking about how much Shadowlands can traumatize him, because I feel like a lot of WoW players also share the same feeling. Like, not many people take this storyline super seriously, but it is technically the canon. It 100% explains why he is such a mess today, and it is really even a shock that he managed to survive and to retain any semblance of sanity by this point. So, to give you a super quick rundown, the main reason the jailer decided to abduct Anduin in particular wasn't only to weaken the Alliance, but it was mainly that he could enter Bastion as a paragon of the light. Initially, he was imprisoned within Torghast, where Sylvanas tried to give him a choice to serve, and he ultimately didn't accept, and then they decided to break him by force. Now, keep this in mind, Anduin was mind-controlled through his father's sword with the soul of Arthas. Just the fact that Arthas' soul...
Yeah, the soul of Arthas. This was such a fucked up lore, honestly, But don't forget, not only was Anduin completely corrupted by domination magic and being mind-controlled, he had a strong enough mind to somewhat resist it. Remember when he dropped the locket as he was going through the portal? Like, Anduin has a strong mind. He was not completely broken by this domination magic. He was still able to be somewhat of himself. And so, you know, you can't say he's a complete bitch, because most people, when it comes to domination magic, just become mindless zombies.
Was added and connected to his domination might have given him a residual effect that he could have also felt the tragedy of Arthas' life and all the bad things that Arthas had done and that he had lived through. However,
we're gonna watch
most importantly, Anduin was specifically tortured and broken by this master raid called File the Afflictor. It was like the jailer's go-to guy in order to break really powerful souls. I mean, think about it. This is the afterlife. You have nothing to lose apart from destruction, so these guys are experts in how to torture your soul and mind, which is unlike anything any regular mortal could experience in the material plane. They almost certainly have access to all your memories, to painful parts of your life, so they know exactly where to twist, like what buttons to push. Then, when he was completely dominated, he was forced to go into Bastion to kill Kirestia, the leader of the Kyrians. Then he does a whole bunch of other bad things, completely serving the jailer, despite also trying to free himself. Keep in mind, and I think this is really important,
he kept having moments where he was fighting, like moments of clarity. That shows a strong mind, okay? Despite what people think, he ain't no weak-ass bitch.
Then he does a whole bunch of other bad things.
He's a strong... Look at this shit.
Jailer,
fighting domination magic.
Himself. Keep in mind, and I think this is really important, we probably didn't see everything there was to it. He might have committed a whole lot of other bad things as well, serving Zoval that we just don't really know about. Ultimately, though, we did manage to free him, but right off the bat, we knew something was wrong and that he wasn't exactly himself. Now, keep in mind, this is hinted at in the newest cinematic, but also near Shadowlands ending. He was obviously tortured with the memory of his father, which at the time was very fresh, and it probably played a big part, like in breaking his mind. However, the biggest thing that we know 100% that mainly broke him was his connection to the light that made him doubt himself, which is evident in the newest War Within cinematic. Anduin had absolute faith in the light that had always seen him through all the challenges he had faced. As I previously stated, he has been through some really bad things, but this was
he's been through some fucked up shit. I do wonder, you know how Thrall went through his arc, where like he lost the ability to talk to the elements because he cheated in the Makura with Garrosh. I wonder if he's going to help Anduin refine the light, you know, because he kind of refound the elements. It looks like I think he's going to help Anduin kind of get back to his light boy days. We'll see.
One time where he couldn't actually do anything, so we had to step in to save him. Anduin himself said each time the jailer dominated his will, he felt slipping further away, as though everything that he once was being consumed by darkness. As Anduin later stated, he was afraid that his tiny bit of willpower that wasn't actually dominated enjoyed these dark things, and he now was
Is Anduin still a priest?
Afraid to actually call upon the light, concerned that it would...
He calls upon the light, so he's clearly like a priest or a paladin, but he kind of sits in like this weird in-between right now. Like during Mists of Pandaria, he was clearly a priest. You know, he was wearing cloth. You remember he carried his little wand around, his little boy wand. But now he uses a weapon. He uses a sword. He wears plate armor. Clearly he's wearing plate, and he still wields the light. I feel like he respect to paladin. Yeah. And he wasn't always a paladin, Malden. No, he was definitely a priest back in the day. Yeah, he's using hero talents. Yeah, that's what it is.
Didn't answer his calls. Now, back at the end of Shadowlands,
I do feel like he respect to a paladin.
He was afraid, but now with the newest cinematic, he confirms it, which obviously was like the last
it's like a Ret
straw
Holy
that broke
combo.
the camel's back. Keep in mind, Anduin had been missing with Dragonflight for about 5 years in total. We know he had been through the mall.
It'd be interesting if he was in fact a paladin, because you know his father, Anduin Wrynn, he was a warrior, arms warrior. You know, he was a dual wielding badass. And that was clear. You know who was a paladin? One of the people that his father was raised with back in the day. Yeah, Arthas Menethil. That's right. Arthas was a paladin. So it's an interesting one if it turns out that Anduin is in fact a paladin. Yeah, Fury. Sorry, he was a Fury warrior. Okay, I'm not a warrior expert. Yeah, he was a Fury warrior, 100%. It'd be interesting if his son turned out to be a paladin.
Terrible things with his own eyes.
He's a war priest.
After all these jailer things, keep in mind, like, this place is literally hell itself. At one point in his hiatus, he
was a death knight during
call upon the light, like maybe a few years later, and his
Shadowlands.
suspicion was confirmed that it wouldn't answer, and it of course didn't, and that is ultimately what kind of made him lose hope, what made him lose his mind, and we can see him being finally broken when he's talking to Thrall. Now, most importantly, we have this whole
Anduin is Arthas.
here
There
where
you
we
go,
have no
confirmed.
idea where he has been these past few years, so even worse things might have actually happened. However, most important thing that you need to keep in mind is that, like, what 5 years actually are. I mean, previously, this guy was a king. He lived in a palace with servants, he had the absolute best care, best weapons, best armor. Now he has been roaming Azeroth, the universe, for who knows where for like years, eating who knows what, sleeping who knows where, all that with no purpose that we know of, as he was not leading the Alliance as he was in the past. Just this aspect alone would lead to his aged and incredibly different looks. I mean, just imagine like roaming the deserts and the wide world for like 5 years alone. Like, that would definitely change your life experience. Now he started getting these visions. Now, Blizzard sort of stated that he isn't actually aware of the World Soul, which I honestly find strange. I feel like that will probably be expanded upon in the future. However, this guy could not catch a break like since he was born. Now, this new look means he has completely grown up, and I think he will get a new model in this expansion where he will definitely kind of get himself to get...
I think this is going to be his new model. By the way, we've seen a lot of Illyria, but not with this new model. Like, the cinematics we've seen of her for the War Within are still her old model. I wonder if we're going to get this new one, which looks really cool. It's like some kind of void hunter. It's kind of badass. I also wanted to say Varian also became very close to Sourfang, if you guys remember. That was a big thing, you know, when he went down to the prison and he freed him, and they talked a lot, and they had a lot of, tip-to-tip moments. And then Sourfang gets killed. It's really fun. I mean, this guy's has witnessed a lot of deaths. That's for sure.
and he will look more like a king than a guy that barely survived the desert. However,
was Varian wearing a tier 10 Fury Warrior?
Baby, I mean, keep in mind, he has been through some things. Thank you for watching. Check out that we're going to be playing Vampire Death Knights, Templar Paladins, as well as a whole bunch of new classes by clicking on the screen. And also check out my video on Ancient Greeks in Spain by also clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Yeah, well, I think part of the journey in the World Soul Saga definitely is going to be Anduin regaining his light. Yes, that'll definitely be it. He might just do it within the War Within, because he's going to need it, especially when we get to the Midnight. You know, I imagine like Midnight, the next expansion after the War Within is definitely going to be a Void versus, you know, darkness versus light, void versus light expansion. So he's going to need to regain it at some point, probably within those first 2 expansions. But all in all, Anduin's not a crybaby bitch. Maybe he was at one point, but I think he's manning up, and we're going to see a very cool version of Anduin coming soon.